Hi, my name is Shelly, and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl and Her Healing podcast. If this is your first time here, I want to say welcome. Welcome to the kind of way you can come in carrying your ache, your questions, your silence, your anger, your confusion, your almost healed heart, and still have a seat here. You don't have to perform in this space, my love. And if you've been back, if you've been listening, praying with me, growing with me, crying with me, holding these episodes close to your chest when life felt too heavy to explain, thank you. Thank you for trusting me with your healing ears. Thank you for allowing my voice to meet you where people have failed to meet you. Thank you for understanding that this platform is not me trying to sound perfect. This is truly me trying to sound honest. And today's episode will be no different. This conversation is one that sits deep in my spirit. And as you can see, the title is "The Wounds Were Never Yours to Carry," and I need y'all to truly let that land where it needs to. Not to skimp across it, not to nod because it sounds nice. Let it hit the places in you that got used to surviving on borrowed pain. That's the kind of conversation we're going to have today, because some of us have been carrying things that did not start with us. Some of us have been dragging emotional weight before we even had language for what hurt. Some of us have spent years calling it personality. We've been calling it love, calling it loyalty, calling it strength, when really it was trauma sitting in our bones asking to be noticed. Some of us were children carrying grown people's shame, grown people's neglect, grown people's broken promises, people's inability to choose us right, grown people's silence, grown people's selfishness, grown people's emotional absence, their fear, grown people's damage. And because we were little, because we were innocent, because we were still trying to make sense of this world, we made the deepest mistake wounded children tend to make. We took what happened around us and make it mean something about us. We said, maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm hard to love. Maybe I'm the one who keeps getting left because there's something wrong with me. Maybe if I behave more, give more, stay quiet more, achieve more, shrink more, forgive faster, stop asking questions, stop crying, stop needing, maybe then I'll finally be chosen. This is how a wound gets planted. Point blank, period. Not just when something painful happens, but when pain enters your life and you build your entire identity around explaining why it happened. That is where I want to start today. Because this episode is not only about what hurt you, okay? I want to make that clear. It is also about what you started believing because of what hurt you. There's a difference. A painful event can happen in a moment. A wound can live in you for decades. I want you to listen to these words, my love. A person can reject you one time. The meaning you attach to that rejection can shape the way you love. It can shape the way you trust, receive, speak, hide, chase, overwork. It can shape the way you settle and abandon yourself for years. And I know this because I have lived it. I know this because I am not standing here as somebody who studied healing from a distance. I'm not speaking from safety of theory. I am not reading this from a place of untouched wisdom. Absolutely not. I am speaking as a woman who has had to sit with some brutal truth. As a woman who has had to pull back layers after layers and realize that a whole lot of what I was carrying was never mine in the first place. I know what it feels like to grow up with wounds that don't even have clean edges. The kind that are hard to explain because they come through neglect, abandonment, rejection, abuse, inconsistency, emotional confusion, silence, and the ache of not feeling fully claimed. I know what it feels like to be a child in Jamaica trying to make sense of grown-up choices, trying to understand why love felt close sometimes in one moment and far the next. Trying to understand why some people were reached for while others were left to fend for themselves emotionally. Trying to understand why being good, helpful, resilient, and responsible still didn't guarantee softness. Trying to understand why your spirit could be so alive, but your little heart still felt unseen. I know what it feels like to live with the quiet question, why not me? Why wasn't I chosen like that? Why wasn't I protected like that? Why did I have to become strong before I ever got to simply feel safe? That question, my love, that question can shape a whole life if you let it. It can show up in your relationships. It can follow you into motherhood, into fatherhood. It can sit beside you in marriage. It can ride with you to work, sneak into your purpose. It can make you overextend. It can make you settle for crumbs and call it gratitude. It can make you stay in places that keep cutting you because your nervous system got trained to call familiar pain home. That right there, that is what a lot of people don't talk about. Because folks love to talk about healing in pretty language. They love talking about rising, glowing, becoming, evolving. And don't get me wrong, I love transformation. Okay, I love growth. I love what happens when God starts rebuilding a woman from the inside out. But let me tell you something. Before the glow, there's grief. Before the clarity, there's confrontation. Before the peace, there is the gut-wrenching realization that you have been loyal to pain that never deserved that kind of devotion. You have been protecting stories that were breaking you. You have been defending patterns that were starving you. You have been calling your survival self who I am, when really it was the version of you built under pressure. And today, I want to talk to the part of you that is tired. Tired of holding the emotional bags of somebody who harmed you. Tired of dragging inherited sorrow. Tired of translating poor treatment into self-blame. Tired of carrying mother wounds, father wounds, family wounds, generational wounds, relationship wounds, cultural wounds, spiritual confusion, and personal shame like they are proof of your identity. No more of that. We are going deeper today because somewhere along the line, many of us became emotional storage units. We stored disappointment. We stored people's inability to love well. We stored their lack of accountability. We stored their immaturity, their betrayals, their lies. We stored their absence. We stored the energy of being overlooked. And then we walk around saying, this is just who I am. No, my love, that is not all of who you are. That is what accumulated in you. There's a difference. And when I started understanding that difference, my whole healing journey shifted, because healing is not always about becoming somebody brand new. Sometimes healing is about returning to the self that existed before the wound made a home in your mind. Returning to the part of you that knew how to feel joy without guilt. Returning to the part of you that did not think love had to be earned through suffering. Returning to the part of you that was worthy before anybody mishandled you. That return, my love, that return is sacred. It is holy work. That return will ask everything of you. It will ask you to stop romanticizing endurance. It will ask you to stop wearing over functioning like a badge. It will ask you to stop calling hyper independence strength, when for many of us, it started as heartbreak. It will ask you to tell the truth about what happened. It will ask you to stop minimizing what shaped you. It will ask you to admit that some of the things you survived were not character building moments. They were painful. They were unfair. They were damaging, and they left marks. You can be grateful for surviving and still be honest about what survival cost you. I need somebody to hear that, because a lot of us were taught to skip straight to gratitude, skip straight to forgiveness, skip straight to it made me stronger, skip straight to that's just life, skip straight to I'm over it. Meanwhile, your body is still tense, your heart still flinches, your boundaries still collapse, your relationships still trigger old panic, your voice still shakes when it's time to tell the truth. Your inner child is still standing in yesterday, asking if she matters. That is not being over it. That is being disconnected from it. And disconnection is not freedom. It is just a pause in feeling. Eventually, what you avoid will start talking through your choices. That's why you can tell yourself you're healed and still pick emotionally unavailable people. That's why you can preach self-worth and still settle. That's why you can know better intellectually and still betray yourself in real time. That's why you can leave one painful chapter and recreate the same emotional dynamic wearing a different face. Because, my love, information is not the same as integration. Knowing something is one thing. Living it from your nervous system, your body, your boundaries, your standard, your self-concept, your spirit, your patterns, your discernment, your relationships, that is another altogether, my love. And for me, healing has been a humbling kind of revelation. There were things I thought I had moved past until life showed me they were still staring me, still in the driver's seat. There were places in me that still connected love to labor, still connected acceptance to self-abandonment, still connected belonging to silence, still connecting being needed to being valuable. And that kind of wiring doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from the little girl who learned early that emotional certainty was not guaranteed. It comes from the child who had to be strong in places where tenderness should have met her first. It comes from growing up with a nervous system that had to watch closely, read the room, feel the shifts, track who was present, who was leaving, who was inconsistent, who was safe, who was choosing other things over you. My love, a child should not have to become a detective to feel secure. A child should not have to become emotionally mature to survive adults. A child should not have to earn gentleness. And yet, so many of us did. So today I want to talk not just about the wounds, but about the burden of carrying them like they belonged to you. Because one of the most painful things about unsolved hurt is this: you don't just feel pain, you start managing it, organizing your whole life around it. You start building habits around it, creating a personality around it, making decisions around it. You become accommodating because you are afraid of being left. You become guarded because closeness feels dangerous. You become hyper aware because calm was never your norm. You become the strong one because needing people felt humiliating. You become the fixer because if everybody else is okay, maybe there's less chance they'll hurt you. You become the peacemaker because conflict reminds your body of emotional instability. You become the overachiever because deep down, part of you still believes your value has to be proven. You become the one who gives and gives and gives because on some soul level, you are still trying to secure the love you should have received freely. That is how wounds keep traveling, not only through memory, through behavior, through relationship patterns, through the stories you tell about yourself when no one is around. And I want to pause here and ask you something. When did you first learn that love might require you to betray yourself? When did you first decide that being chosen meant becoming smaller? When did you first begin apologizing for needs that were completely human? When did you first start believing that your pain made you difficult instead of deserving of care? When did you first confuse endurance with devotion? My loves, I want you to sit with that. I don't want you to rush past it because those questions are not surface questions. Those are soul questions. Those are the kind that open doors in you. Those are the kind that exposes how long you've been carrying emotional luggage with somebody else's name on it. And let me make this personal. As I've been healing, I've had to revisit the little girl in Jamaica who was absorbing everything without having the language to process it. The one growing up around separation, distance, abuse, inconsistency, unfairness, and emotional hunger. The one who was trying to make meaning out of the adults who had their own unresolved storms. The one who was learning too early how to keep going. I had to revisit the little girl who helped, who adapted, who watched, who internalized, who felt deeply, who wanted to be held in ways life did not always provide. I had to revisit memories with my grandmother. The stories, the atmosphere, the texture of those years, the pieces of home, the pieces of lack, the places that gave me warmth, the places that left me aching. I had to revisit what it means to be shaped by both love and absence at the same time, because that can happen too. Sometimes your story is not all dark. Sometimes there were beautiful moments, sacred moments, grandmother love, shared meals, memories wrapped in the island air, laughter between hardships, small tendernesses that carried you farther than anybody knew. And still, there can be wounds. That complexity matters. Because healing is not honest if it flattens your story into one note. I can honor what held me and still tell the truth about what hurt me. I can appreciate the people who loved me while also grieving what I did not receive. I can stop blaming myself for what the adults around me were unable to do. That is one of the hardest parts of healing. Accepting that some people did the best they could and it still wasn't enough for what you needed. That truth will break your heart and free you at the same time. Because when you finally admit that a need was unmet, You stop wasting your life trying to rewrite history through present day self-punishment. You stop saying, maybe if I were different. No, it was needed. It mattered. It was real, and it deserved a response. Now, I want to talk about how these wounds keep showing up long after childhood is over, because some people hear conversations like this and think we're just talking about the past for the sake of the past. That's not what this is. We're talking about now. We are talking about what follows you into adulthood if you never interrupt it. We are talking about why you can have grown woman responsibilities and still find yourself reacting from younger pain. We are talking about why somebody not texting you back can trigger a depth of panic that has very little to do with the text. Why being misunderstood can send you into shame. Why feeling excluded can light up an old wound instantly. Why conflict can make your chest tight. Why healthy love can feel suspicious. Why peace can make you uncomfortable because chaos trained your body to equate intensity with aliveness. That, my love, that is the real conversation. Sometimes what you can call overreacting is actually an unhealed part of you getting touched. Sometimes what you call trust issues is a body that remembers disappointment. Sometimes what you call standards is fear in expensive clothes. Sometimes what you call being easygoing is self-erasure. Sometimes what you call being there for somebody is a trauma response that learned usefulness feels safer than vulnerability. I'm not saying every trait came from pain, but I'm saying it is worth asking. Who would I be if I was no longer organizing my life around old injuries? Let that sink in. Who would you be if you no longer had to defend the wound? Who would you be if you stopped building relationships around what your pain finds familiar? Who would you be if you no longer mistook emotional labor for intimacy? Who would you be? Who would you be if you stopped interpreting somebody else's inability to love you well as evidence that you are hard to love? Who would you be if you believed for real, not just in theory, that your existence does not need to be justified through suffering? Take that in. Let it marinate. Because for a lot of us, pain became proof. Proof that we are trying. Proof that we care. Proof that we are deep. We are loyal. Proof that we love hard. But pain is not always proof of virtue. Sometimes pain is just pain. Sometimes it's a sign that you have tolerated too much. Sometimes it's evidence that your boundaries were missing. Sometimes it's your spirit saying, this is not where you belong. Sometimes it's the alarm, not the assignment. There were seasons in my own life where I stayed too long in spaces that were shrinking me. Seasons where I confused commitment with self-sacrifice, where I kept trying to be understanding while my soul was exhausted. Seasons where I kept pushing, giving, managing, enduring, because somewhere in me was a younger wound that thought leaving meant failure, thought choosing myself meant guilt, thought surviving more pain might somehow finally make me worthy of softer love. And let me say this clearly, my love. Staying in what is breaking you does not make you noble. It does not make you spiritually mature. It does not make you a better man or woman. It does not make you more loving. It does not make you more evolved. Sometimes it just means your wounds have more influence than your wisdom in that moment. And that is not something to be ashamed of. That is something to become aware of, because shame keeps you stuck. Awareness opens the door. That's why I'm big on telling the truth in my healing journey. Not because truth is always comfortable, but because Lies are expensive. It costs too much to keep pretending what harmed you did not harm you. It costs too much to keep calling dysfunction your normal. It costs too much to keep performing strength while your insides are begging for tenderness. It costs too much to keep naming old coping strategies as personality traits when God is trying to show you there is more to you than survival. There's a real you underneath the adaptation. Yeah, there is. There is a real you underneath the role, believe it or not. Underneath the people pleasing, the over explaining, underneath the fear of being misunderstood, underneath the self-doubt. There is a real you underneath the guilt, the shape shifting. There's a real you underneath the need to keep proving you are valuable. And that real you is worth meeting. Trust me. Not the version of you built for survival. Not the version of you built for endurance. Not the version of you built for keeping the peace at your own expense. Not the version of you built out of abandonment and rejection and emotional scarcity. The real you, the one whose spirit still knows what freedom tastes like. The one who still has a voice under all the swallowing. The one who is still in there beneath all the layers of coping. I think one of the wildest things about healing is realizing how many parts of your life were shaped by wounds you didn't consciously choose. You didn't choose to become afraid of being left. You didn't choose to feel like you had to compete for love. You didn't choose to question your worth because others failed to reflect it. You didn't choose the environment that trained your nervous system, but you do get to choose what happens next. That is where the personal power comes in, not in the denying what happened, not in the pretending you are unaffected, not in the forcing positivity. Personal power enters when you say, this pain may have touched my life, but it does not get to author the rest of my story. This wound may have shaped certain patterns, but it does not get to define my identity. What happened to me mattered, but I refuse to keep carrying the meaning my hurt assigned to me. That's the shift. It is not nothing happened. It is something happened and I'm no longer willing to be named by it. Because you see, too many people are walking around calling themselves by wound language. Unwanted, too emotional, hard to deal with, too needy, too intense, too sensitive, always too much, not enough, second choice, the strong one, the fixer, the one who can handle it, the one who doesn't need anything, the one who keeps it together. And I want to challenge that. Who gave you that name? Who taught you to see yourself that way? What story was repeated so many times that it started sounding like truth? And if that story was born in pain, why are you still letting it introduce you? That is work, my love. That is the confrontation. That is the holy disruption healing brings. Now let's talk about the body for a minute, because wounds are not just mental. They are embodied. They live in the jaw, the shoulders, the stomach, the clenched chest, the breath you hold without noticing, the exhaustion you call normal, the way you scan rooms, the way you anticipate disappointment, the way your body prepares for rejection before it happens. Your body keeps score in ways your mouth may never admit yet. That's why healing is not just about positive thinking. It is also creating enough inner safety for your body to stop living like danger is always one conversation away. And my love, that is deep work. It is slow and it is sacred. That is why so many of us are tired in ways sleep does not fix. Because you're not just tired from tasks. You are tired from carrying emotional loads that was never designed for your spirit. You are tired from bracing, from monitoring, from overgiving, from swallowing your truth, from living in old narratives, from being the one who always has to understand, from trying to earn what should have been offered freely. And when you begin to lay that down, it can feel strange at first, because healing does not always feel immediately relieving. Sometimes it feels unfamiliar. Sometimes it feels exposed. It feels like grief. Sometimes it feels like danger. Sometimes it feels like disorientation, because your old identity was built around carrying. If you have always been the strong one, what happened when you admit you're hurting? If you have always been the understanding one, what happens when you stop excusing mistreatment? If you always have been the available one, what happens when you develop boundaries? If you have always been the self-sacrificing one, what happens when you start choosing yourself? You may lose some things. Let's be real. You may lose access to people who only like the version of you that had no limits. You may lose the image of being endlessly accommodating. You may lose relationships that depended on your silence. You may lose roles that were built around your depletion. But what you gain? Yourself, my love. And there is no loss greater than losing yourself. No relationship is worth the cost of your soul. No role is worth the erosion of your spirit, my love. No title is worth becoming a stranger to your own needs. And I had to learn that in my own way, not from a quote, not from a cute caption, from living, from pain, from staying too long in some things, from waking up to myself in stages, from realizing that unsolved childhood wounds have a way of negotiating your adult life if you don't interrupt them. They will tell you to accept less. They will tell you to doubt your intuition, to question your standards. They will tell you to fear your own power. They will tell you that wanting more means you are ungrateful. They will tell you that boundaries are harsh, that choosing yourself is selfish. They will tell you that you should be happy with scraps because at least somebody is offering something. No, absolutely not. That is not wisdom, okay? That is woundedness speaking. And one of the most important parts of healing is learning the difference between the voice of your wounds and the voice of your truth. Your wounds say, don't ask for too much. Truth says, you are allowed to have needs. Your wound says, stay quiet so they don't leave. Truth says, who is meant for you should be able to meet your honesty. Your wound says, keep proving yourself. Truth says, worth is not something you perform into existence, my love. Your wounds says, this pain is familiar, so it must be love. Truth says, familiar is not the same as healthy. Wound says, if you were enough, they would have chosen you. Truth says, their inability to love well is not a measure of your value. That right there is discernment. And discernment saves lives. Not always physically, but emotionally, spiritually. It saves lives. Because when you stop letting the wound narrate reality, you stop making life-altering decisions from fear. And I know what it's like to wrestle with fear. Fear around money, fear around starting over, fear around whether I made the right choices, fear around whether healing will cost too much, fear around whether I can trust myself, fear around what happens when the old identity starts falling apart and a truer version of me begins to emerge. My loves, that kind of fear is real. But I have learned something. Fear gets loudest when you are close to dropping what no longer belongs to you. Fear loves baggage. Oh yeah. Fear loves old stories. Fear loves inherited limits, familiar pain. Fear loves when you keep carrying things that keep you bent over. Because, my love, listen, if you ever fully stand up in who you are, in what you deserve, in what God says about you, in what your healing is teaching you, in the wisdom your pain has produced without letting pain become your God, everything changes. And nobody in your life will know how to handle the healed version of you. The healed version asks questions. The healed version does not ignore red flags because he or she is lonely. The healed version does not romanticize struggle just because it's familiar. The healed version is compassionate, yes, but not self-abandoning. The healed version gives, but not from emptiness. The healed version loves, but not at the cost of his or her own dignity. The healed version can be soft without being accessible to nonsense. The healed version can forgive without re-entering harm. The healed version can grieve and still move. The healed version can feel deeply and still choose wisely. That is the woman I am becoming today. Not a perfect woman, not a woman untouched by pain, not a woman who is learning to tell the difference between what belongs to her and what was placed on her. That difference matters because some of us are carrying emotional suitcases packed by people who never planned to unpack them. And we are exhausted. Of course we are. So let me ask you something deeper. What have you been carrying that did not begin with you? Was it your mother's sadness? Your father's absence? Your family's silence? The burden of being the strong sibling? The pressure of being the responsible one? The shame somebody projected onto you? The belief that you have to suffer before you deserve? The fear of becoming a burden? The message that your needs are inconvenient? The idea that love means tolerating harm? The generational pattern of women shrinking to survive. What is it? Name it. Because unnamed weight becomes identity. Once you name it, you can separate from it. And that separation, my love, it is so powerful. I want to speak now to the listener who has been carrying rejection like a second skin. Maybe you know exactly what that feels like. To always feel a little outside, a little unclaimed, a little too aware of who gets chosen first, a little too aware of who receives the softness you needed. Let me tell you this with my whole chest. Rejection is painful, but it is not prophetic. It does not get to tell you who you are. It does not get to predict the quality of love available to you. It does not get to determine your worth. It does not get to become the lens through which you interpret your life forever. Sometimes rejection is simply redirection. Sometimes rejection exposes what cannot hold you. Sometimes rejection reveals where you were overextending yourself to earn what was never being offered freely. Sometimes rejection is the end of illusion. Sometimes rejection hurts because it touches an older place, but that older place still deserves care, not condemnation. So, my love, if rejection is part of your story, I need you to stop using it as proof that there's something defective in you. There's not. You may be carrying grief. You may be carrying tenderness. You may be carrying scars, but you are not defective. And to the listener carrying abandonment, I want to speak to you too. Abandonment for me is something that runs deep. Okay? It can make you panic at a distance. It can make you hold on tighter than you should. It can make you accept almost love because your body is terrified of emptiness. It can make you become over understanding because the possibility of being left feels unbearable. It can make you cling to people, to memories, roles, and identities that are already over. Abandonment can make ending feels like annihilation. But hear me, my love. Somebody leaving does not mean you disappear. Your life does not lose value because somebody could not stay. Your spirit is not erased because somebody was inconsistent. Their departure may have hurt you deeply, but it did not reduce your sacredness. You are still here, still whole at the core, still worthy of rooted love. And to the listener dealing with rejection, the kind that doesn't always have dramatic language, but leaves a deep ache because your needs were not consistently met. I want to say this carefully. Neglect teaches you to underneed, right? It teaches you to downplay. It teaches you to say, I'm fine, before anyone even asks. It teaches you to live from deprivation so long that asking for more feels greedy. That kind of wound can make you emotionally starve with good manners. You smile. You function, right? You handle things. You say thank you for the little you get. You call yourself low maintenance. You tell yourself you don't need much. But deep down, there is a part of you wondering what it would be like to be fully considered. That longing is not weakness. That longing is human. And just because your needs went unmet does not mean it was too much. It means it was unmet. That's all. And I want to take this moment to turn inward, because whenever I make these episodes, I'm not just speaking outward. I'm also speaking to myself, to the parts of me still healing, to the parts of me still learning how to trust my own voice, to the parts of me still grieving what was lost, what was missed, what was not protected, what took too long to name. I'm still healing, my love. I'm still learning how not to wear pain like a personality. Still learning how not to measure love by how much I have to endure to keep it. Still learning how to choose peace without guilt. I am still learning how to hear God underneath the noise of fear. Still learning how to let my body exhale. Still learning how to stop apologizing for the version of me that now wants more, deserves more, and refuses to keep shrinking. And maybe that's what makes this episode honest. I'm not talking from some perfect mountaintop. I'm talking from the road, from the valley, from the wrestle, from the sacred middle where you know too much to go back, but you're still becoming who healing is asking you to be. That middle is not glamorous, my love, but it is real. It is where you stop lying to yourself. It is where you stop calling brokenness your comfort zone. It is where you stop confusing emotional chaos with chemistry. It is where you begin to hold your younger self with compassion instead of judgment. And I need to say that too. Your younger self deserves compassion, not embarrassment, not criticism, not eye rolling, not shame, compassion, because she did what she knew how to do with what she had. She survived. She adapted. She learned patterns for a reason. She made sense of things the only way she could. So healing is not about hating the version of you that coped. Healing is about thanking her for getting you here and gently letting her know she no longer has to run the whole show. My love, that is one of the most beautiful things I have to learn. You can honor the survival self without letting her lead forever. You can say, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for getting me through. Thank you for helping me read danger, stay alert, endure. But we are in different season now. And I need wisdom, not just defense. I need truth, not just protection. I need softness, not just armor. I need alignment, not just endurance. My love, that is healing. Not self-hate, not spiritual bypassing, not pretending pain never touched you. Healing is a relationship, and it is one with your truth, with your body, with your inner child, with God, with your choices, with your voice, with the future self that keeps whispering, there is more for us than this. So let me ask you some questions I really want you to sit with after this episode. My loves, I want you to ask yourself, what have I mistaken for just who I am that is actually unprocessed pain? Where in my life am I still trying to earn what should have come with mutual care? What story did I create about myself because of what other people fail to give? How often do I abandon my own needs before anyone else gets the chance? What feels familiar to me but does not actually feel safe? Where do I still confuse being needed with being loved? What part of me is exhausted from carrying emotional weight that has never belonged to me? If I stop letting old wounds make the decisions for me, what would I choose differently? What grief have I avoided by calling myself strong? When I say I want peace, am I ready to let go of the identities built around struggle? My love, those are not easy questions. I know, because I ask those questions myself. But they are freeing ones, because the life you want cannot be built by the wound that is still trying to protect you from the life you were meant to live. Let me say this again for the people in the back. The life you want cannot be built by a wound that is still trying to protect you from the life you were meant to live. Your wound will keep you small and call it safety, my love. Your healing will stretch you and call it truth. Your wound will make you settle and call it realism. Your healing will raise your standards and call it self-respect. Your wound will make you suspicious of softness, but your healing will teach you that peace does not have to be earned through suffering. And this is where spirituality enters for me in a very real way. Not spiritual language used to avoid accountability. Not everything happened for a reason said too quickly for somebody still bleeding. Okay, I'm talking about the sacred kind, the kind where God meets you in the debris, the kind where your spirit starts remembering itself, the kind where divine truth cuts through old lies, where you begin to see that what happened to you is not the end of who you are. The kind where you realize that your healing is not just personal, it's generational. Because when you lay down the wounds that were never yours to carry, you interrupt something bigger than you. Absolutely. Listen, you stop handing the same pain to your children. You stop normalizing emotional starvation, calling silence strength. You stop teaching people that access to you requires no responsibility. You, my love, stop participating in patterns that harmed you. That matters. Absolutely. That is legacy work. It's not easy. And for me, as a mother, As a woman, as somebody deeply aware of the cycles I come from and the cycles I refuse to continue, that matters deeply. I do not want to pass down survival and call it inheritance. I do not want to hand my children unspoken ache and call it normal. I do not want my life to be another chapter of woman carrying too much and calling it love. Absolutely not. I want my healing to become shelter. Okay? I want my truth to become freedom. I want to learn to create space where softness is not rare, honesty is not punished, needs are not shamed, and love does not require self-erasure. That is part of my why. That is part of my purpose. That is part of why I keep talking, why I keep writing, why I keep opening my mouth even when the truths are tender. Because I know I am not the only one. There's no way. And neither are you. There are people listening to this right now who have spent years blaming themselves for wounds that were planted by environments and systems that failed them. And I want this episode to be a turning point, not because one episode fixes a life, but because truth can begin a shift. So hear me clearly, my love. The wound may be in you, but it is not the same as you. The pain may have affected your path, but it is not your identity. The heartbreak may have shaped your coping, but it does not get the final say over your future. My love, what happened to you deserves to be honored. What happened to you deserves tenderness. What happened to you deserves witness. It deserves healing, but it does not deserve ownership of your name. You are more than what hurt you. You are more than what left. You are more than what was withheld. You are more than what was mishandled, what was projected onto you. You are more than what was inherited. You are more than what you had to survive. And maybe today is the day you stop carrying it like it was your lifelong assignment. Maybe today is the day you say, this grief is real, but it is not my name. This rejection was painful, but it is not my destiny. This abandonment marked me, but it does not define my capacity to be loved. This neglect shaped my patterns, but it does not get to shape the rest of my life. This family pain existed, but I do not have to keep living from it unconsciously. This relationship wounded me, but I do not have to keep building from that wound. This fear is loud as hell, but it is not the deepest truth about me. That is how layering it down begins. Not in one dramatic moment, always, right? Sometimes in the smallest choices, in the honest prayers. Sometimes it's literally in boundaries, in naming patterns, in letting yourself need. Sometimes it's in speaking the truth, no matter how hard it is, in grieving fully, in resting, in leaving, in asking for help, in refusing to keep calling pain home. Healing can be holy and ugly at the same time, my love. Some days it looks like crying in your car. Some days it looks like journaling what you finally admit hurt. Some days it looks like silence because you are tired of translating your pain to people committed to misunderstanding you. Some days it looks like choosing not to chase. Some days it looks like going inward instead of reacting outwards. Some days it looks like feeling your anger without turning it against yourself. Some days it looks like noticing your patterns in real time and choosing differently even while your body is uncomfortable. My love, that counts. all of it counts. Every time you do not abandon yourself, that counts, right? Every time you notice the old story and refuse to bow to it, that counts. Every time you tell the truth instead of performing strength, yeah, that counts. Every time you choose peace over familiar pain, yep, you guessed right, that counts. My love, every time you remember that the wound is not your whole identity, that counts. And because I want this to be practical too, let me give you a few things to carry forward after this episode. Okay, first, I want you to begin noticing your emotional language. Okay, I want you to pay attention to the words you use when you talk about yourself. Do you constantly describe yourself through damage? Do you introduce yourself through wounds? Do you rehearse brokenness more than possibility? I want you to start there and know that language matters because words make homes in the mind. Second, get honest about your patterns without shaming yourself. Not what's wrong with me, but what happened to me that made this pattern make sense. That question opens compassion instead of condemnation. Third, ask your body, what is it carrying? Where do you tighten? Where do you numb out? Where do you brace? Your body is not being dramatic. It is literally telling the truth in another language. Fourth, my love, I want you to practice separating the event from the identity. Instead of, I was abandoned, so I'm hard to stay for. Try this. Try, I experienced abandonment and it deeply hurt me. See the difference? One is identity, the other is experience. That distinction can save your sense of self. Okay? And fifth, grieve what you do not receive. I cannot say that enough. A lot of us want healing without grief, but grief is often the bridge. You have to mourn what was missing, what was mishandled, what was delayed, what was denied. Not because grief keeps you stuck, because ungrieved pain keeps reappearing. Sixth, my love, I want you to consciously stop making peace with what keeps violating your spirit. And that applies to relationships, environments, narratives, habits, expectations, all of it. If it keeps costing you your peace, your dignity, your truth, your softness, your clarity, it deserves to be reevaluated. Seventh, my love, listen to me. This is really important, and I want you to hear this. Let God into the places you usually manage alone. That will change your whole life. The over-functioning places, yeah. The panicked places, my love. The shamed places. The little girl or boy places. The places where you think everything depends on you carrying everything. You were never meant to carry everything. That is the whole point. You were never meant to carry everybody's pain, everybody's projection, everybody's failure to love, everybody's unprocessed history, everybody's emotional laziness, everybody's brokenness. And you definitely were never meant to carry your wounds like they were proof you deserve them. No. Some things happened around you. Some things happened to you. Some things got placed on you, but not everything that touched your life gets to take ownership of your soul. So before I close, I want to speak directly to the listener who is tired. The one who has to be strong for too long. The one who is starting to realize how much she has been carrying. The one who is waking up to patterns she used to excuse. The one who is grieving herself and finding herself at the same time. Who is scared that if she puts the burden down, she won't know who she is without it. Listen to me. You are not losing yourself by laying the wound down. You are meeting yourself. You are not becoming selfish by refusing to carry what breaks you. You are becoming honest. You are not weak because you finally feel what you buried. You are becoming available to your own truth. My love, listen, you are not late. You are not behind. You are not too damaged. You're not too far gone. You're not too old. You are not too complicated. You are process, sacred process. And the fact that you are listening to this means part of you is already ready. Ready to stop romanticizing suffering, ready to stop over-identifying with pain, ready to stop carrying the emotional debris of other people's choices, truly ready to stop apologizing for needing more than survival. My love, you are ready to stop confusing the wound for the self. That readiness matters, and I want you to protect it, feed it, honor it. And as for me, I'm still walking this too. Still healing, still uncovering, still releasing, still learning how to love myself in places I once only judged. Still learning how to trust that who I really am is deeper than what I have lived through. Still learning that healing is not me becoming somebody else. It is truly me returning to what was always sacred beneath the pain. This is my prayer for you too. That you return, that you remember, that you release, that you recover the parts of you that got buried under rejection, under abuse, abandonment, neglect, disappointment, fear, and survival, that you stop wearing old wounds like a birthright. I pray that you stop making a home inside stories that were born in pain, that you begin to recognize yourself beyond what harmed you. And when life tries to hand you the same old burden, I hope something in you rises and says, no, I carried that long enough. I learned from it. I grieved it. I named it. But I will not keep building my identity around it. My love, the wounds were never mine to carry. Thank you for sitting with me today. Thank you for being here with your heart open. Thank you for letting truth do what truth does. And wherever this episode finds you, I want you to remember this. You do not have to bleed forever to prove you survived. You do not have to stay bent over pain to show that it mattered. You do not have to become smaller because of what happened. My loves, you do not have to carry what was never assigned to your soul. Put it down, beloved. Not because it never hurt, but because it did. And because it did, you deserve to heal. My love, thank you for listening. I love you so much, so much. And I will catch you on the next episode.